Hello and welcome back to the College Football UK podcast after we had a week off last week. Before we get going, I want to introduce you to, and again, I'm going to keep this going, two stunning gentlemen in Nick and Gary. How are we, gentlemen, on this fine Friday evening?
Distinct there from Nick. No, but good. Glad to be back. Apologies for last week. It's nice to catch up with everybody again and lots of news to catch up on from 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it's that really weird and awkward period where I think there's not so much big news happening constantly at the moment, so there's not so as much for us to kind of, I guess, beat at. But over the next few weeks, you best know that we're going to start delving into our predictions and looking forward to the season rather than just kind of preparing ourselves to understand college football, because as has been mentioned, it's no point doing that anymore. No one knows.
Nobody knows anymore. Nobody cares. Nobody knows what's going on.
Before we start on our full topic for the day, we'll get into a little bit of the news. Now, I've got a couple of headlines, guys. I'm just going to rattle off with, and then I'm going to throw it to you guys and see if you've got anything that I've missed or not included, including a couple of things that were going to be in last week's episode, which includes the state of North Carolina were trying to introduce a bill that would force UNC and NC State to play against other state-based Group of 5 teams throughout every season and make sure that those games would continue to happen every year. That bill has not been passed, but they were trying to do it, and questions arise as to why that's a priority for them. Then we also
have to question that one. That's an interesting one we'll delve into because they play each other anyway.
Yes. Well, then you've got the fact that the bowl game and playoff schedule was officially announced, and obviously the playoffs are moving from a 14 to a 12-team playoffs this year. But the schedule was announced, and 2 games will compete with NFL games. 2 of the college football playoff games will be alongside the Texans at Chiefs game and alongside the Steelers at Ravens game, which is the same day. I think it's the one just before Christmas. Then finally on my side, guys, I've got All-State have had some conversations with the Big 12 Conference about potential naming rights to the conference, and that's murky waters right there. And finally, that among all the scheduling changes, the Navy-Army game, which is normally a standalone game every year, only game played on that day, has now been pushed to one of 2 games on that day. I mean, it won't be played alongside any other game, but there will be another game on the same day. Gentlemen, have you got any other news that you would like to throw our way?
I think just the latest one, isn't there? There's that one that we just briefly I think it's pretty news, just come up a little while ago, just before we went live there, Fletch, that there's a private equity investment being mooted around for the Big 12 as well. It looks like there's some big money floating around of what's going to happen there, so we might want to dig in. I know Nick was just looking into a little bit more detail about who and what that is, and that's an interesting new development. And then some sad news coming out of Southern Miss. One of their projected starters, one of their defensive backs, unfortunately has been involved in a shooting and has passed away. Daniels, I think, was it J.D. Daniels? One of the
MJ Daniels.
Died on Tuesday of gunshot wounds. So sad news coming out of there. He seemed he was. I think he just transferred in there. Was looking to be a starter. So sad to read that.
Yeah. Nick, have you got anything?
Yeah, I mean, I had that news about MJ Daniels on Tuesday. I'm just looking into a bit more into this Big 12 deal. Dennis Dodd of CBS Sports is reported. Forgive me, I'll just read this. That they're in talks with the CVC capital partners out of Luxembourg. And it would provide $800 million and up to $1 billion for the Big 12, and some of the money would go to the 16 conference members. In exchange, CVC would get a 15 to 20% stake in the conference. The Big 12 would have to sign an agreement to say that none of them would leave and it wouldn't split up. and it would mean that member teams would get around $75 million each a year. So, all right, if you can get it.
All right, if you can get it. And, from the NCAA versus House and all that stuff that's still floating around, a private equity firm coming in and guaranteeing 60 to 70 million dollars for your conference takes away that pressure, if you like, of what's just come out of all of these colleges and universities trying to find the money for paying off ex players, etc. So this could be massive for the Big 12.
Yeah, it not only pays off your players and the guys who have played for you, but it pretty much attracts new players ahead of other.
It gives you some big NIL there,
huge advantage.
It?
Yeah.
And I suppose that leads quite nicely there, Fletch, into the other Big 12 sort of news, then, doesn't it?
I was going to say that. That's literally what I was about to say was, and then we're looking at the naming rights to a division changing. Now, that's not gone down well with a lot of people that I know I speak to in the college football realm. They do not like it.
I don't know. Do I care? It's still, it's one of those. It's the Big 12. Granted, it's got 16 players, 16 teams in it, but it's still, the conference is going to be the Big 12. It'll be known as the Big 12. You don't, even if it's sponsored by Allstate, State Farm, whoever it ends up being, that's just marketing and whatever. People are still going to call it Big 12. It's still going to be known colloquially as Big 12. No one's going to sit there and say it's the All-State Big 12. So if it gives them a bit extra, what's the big deal? I mean, it probably goes back to, are they allowed to put the logo on the fields? Is that back to that SEC sponsoring the field sort of thing we talked about a few weeks ago? But in the end, what's the big hoo-ha?
Well, one question I'm going to ask you then is, when was the last time you called it the Barclays Premier League or the Emirates FA Cup? When was or it's always the Premier League and the FA Cup?
Premier League or the FA Cup. You don't. The only one I suppose over here, the only one that changes names is that third cup. The Carabao or the Milk Cup or the whatever cup. That one.
Carling Cup.
It
is officially the League Cup, but nobody calls it the League Cup, which is weird. That one gets called whatever sponsor it is, but the other big ones, you don't call them the Barclays Premier League or whatever it was before Barclays. It's the Premier League, and it's the FA Cup.
Premier League's just called the Manchester City Trophy now, isn't it?
Asterisk. The 115 asterisk trophy.
But I think that leads into, at the end of it, most of our leagues at this point, it's like La Liga Santander, the Uber Eats League 1, that we have, most of our leagues, at least in our sport, have a name sponsor of the league.
I think the Championship over here has got a sponsor as well, isn't it?
It's all the Championship, League 1 and League 2 are Sky Bet.
But does anyone call them that? Apart from on the Sky Bet, nobody reads that out, nobody cares.
Exactly. When it's official levels of communication, but other than that, and I think that's what I'm kind of getting at, is like the whole, well, we've had this for a while and no one really cares anymore. I think in the 90s you would have found that a few people would have cared, but most of us by now, like I didn't grow up when the Premier League was just simply the Premiership or the Division 1. I grew up just always knowing it is the Barclays Premier League. So
when you
think, I think it's one of those.
When you think that Barclays only give £75 million a year for that.
It's nothing, is it? In the grand scheme of things,
20 teams. You're 20 teams. You're talking like $3 and $3.75 million a team. That's nothing in the. So,
for what,
it's peanuts.
What they get out of it for being called that.
Yeah. Well, I bank with Barclays, and I can't remember the last time I was like. I think in once I've been offered, here's a chance to win free tickets to a game, but. Never.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see anything from Barclays about it. And again, I bank with Barclays. So, But I think, like I said, that's all I think I'm getting at with that point is just the whole. This is a thing that we've grown up with and dealt with. Is having our leagues have sponsored naming rights. Would we be that bothered if all of a sudden it became the State Farm NFL or the Progressive NFL?
No, because you just call it the NFL. You just call it what it is, and that's the whole point. I think it's more to do with sort of like the history of it and the fact that because it's never had a sponsor before, it's all up in hoo-ha because there suddenly might be one. Once it's been ratified and there's been a sponsor for 5 years and whatever, and everyone's used to having a sponsor, it'll just pale into insignificance, and
no one will care. The next one will come along. Yeah. And it's like if the Big 12 becomes the All-State Big 12 or whatever it becomes, and the Big 10 suddenly goes, oh, hang on, why don't we become the State Farm Big 10? And if they all have it, then it's like it'll be irrelevant to everybody because, as you say, it'll still be the Big 12 and the Big 10, and the conferences will still keep that, even if it is the the 4-day CC, conference. It will still just be called the ACC. It's not going to be called the 4 conference. It just doesn't happen that way.
One other thing I think I want to say is I just can picture it in my head now of any people from the States who will all be Florida State fans who were just there for Gary, so they're probably not listening to what me and Nick say anyway.
Nobody listens to what you guys say anyway, right? Anyway.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. But I can hear them going, but you just don't get it. You just don't get it. You don't get what this is about. And yes, I think we come, I guess, with a little bit of privilege in this, in the fact that we're from thousands of miles away and we don't have the same connection to the sport. But also, like I say, we dealt with this. We come from a place where our leagues are sponsored, and like I say, I think we've got to try and come at it from a bit of a reasonable perspective. And one of the reasonable perspectives I think I'm trying to come at it with is, as well, the vast majority of people agree that players should be paid. The vast majority of people would generally agree that that money needs to be distributed among the people who are earning that money. But at the end of the day, that money has to come from somewhere. And it isn't going to be a case of, it can't just simply be a case of a donor turning up who has millions going up to his old college and saying, here's a few million. It's just not enough of that is going to come through until there has to be these business transactions where one company gets something and someone else gets something out of it. So, yeah, I think as well, the money in college football, it's here, it's going to stay, but also it has to come from somewhere.
Yeah,
I mean
it's a new thing, isn't it?
In a perfect world, the college would like to keep it all to alumni donors and previous students, and say, oh, how great our students are, look at how much money they're investing.
Mm-hmm.
They'd love to keep it all in-house and closed off, but the world moves on and you've got to move with it. And I just think, don't cut your nose off to spite your face, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Especially with this new ruling that, as we've said over and over again, the change in landscape of college football as it is, colleges and conferences and places that they're now looking at different ways, and they need different ways to find a lot more money than they had before. Because NIL and the players and etc. As you say, Fletch, they deserve the money. They should get paid because they're the ones that are playing and bringing in the product. But it's never been that way, so they have to change the model. They have to change the business model. It has to be a little bit more professional. And if the first step is naming rights or sponsoring a conference, which, as we've just said, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't make that much difference. It just puts a little bit of extra money in the coffers of all of those teams. It's got to be a good thing. But again, probably coming from our perspective, because we're used to it, and it's like all the leagues are sponsored over here. It's not a big thing.
Exactly. I think that's one thing we have to kind of get at times, is just like the relationship we have with this game is different, and it's always going to be different to at least some sort of degree. And I guess the final thing I want to say on this matter anyway is that this may end up getting removed before I put it in because it might be a little bit too political. Is at the end of the day, this money like I said, this money has to come from somewhere. And as we all know, from various ways of just the way the world works, no one else wants to be the one that's out of pocket for it. So the money, like the colleges don't want to lose out on certain revenues to give it to and certain profits to give it to the players. The conferences don't want to lose out on certain bits, and the NCAA definitely does not want to lose out on certain bits of money right now. So that money has to come from somewhere, and we all know that it's not going to come from the places that we would generally expect it to come from.
Yeah,
because they're not going to want to let go of that money. So before we fully move on, I did want to ask you just really, really quickly 2 questions on 2 other pieces of news. Number 1 is the state of North Carolina. These schools play each other anyway, as you have said, Gary. Why is it that the state of North Carolina right now might feel that they need to legislate this going forward? Because it happens anyway.
It's interesting because, as you say, NC State and Carolina, they play as part of the conference that they are both currently in. So they play each other as part of the conference. And they have historically played other number 5 teams in Carolina. So I realised that. I looked into this the minute I came out and I was listening to some stuff. There are a lot of teams around that area. There are a lot of teams in that Carolinas area that they play each other. But it was like, why do you need to legislate that these teams will all play for each other every year if they already do as part of the conference they're already in? It just inevitably led to the questions of, does that mean that one of them is looking to not be in the conference that they are currently in? And then you would that inevitably leads you to think, well, are the Tar Heels looking to follow FSU and Clemson out of the ACC, but the legislator are trying to make sure that they keep local rivalries as a...
Exactly.
It was definitely...
And
I had more questions than answers to me. It's almost intimating more things than was already known.
It's one of those for me, right? I get these DMs from people on Instagram all the time. And they're like, I'm definitely not a scammer. Well, now I think you're a scammer. It's one of there's no implication until you bring it up. And there's like, from what we were aware, okay, the fear that UNC might join Florida State and Clemson and may want to walk out of the ACC at some point and may want to follow them is always going to be was always going to be a possibility. Mm-hmm. Now, how realistic that was going to be, we don't know, because depending on the money that the ACC gets from a potential Clemson and Florida State leaving, they could see a little bit of extra cash come through from a bit of from that injection, and maybe they want to stay around. So it just, I think, for me, raises that question of, does the state of North Carolina truly think that this is now a worry that they might leave? And as they've mentioned, the revenue that when you play big games like that in the state of North Carolina, the revenue that you get to make and the economy the boost to the economy that happens is great. And to feel like you have to legislate it, to me, like I say, it raises the question that maybe was already there, but it almost
puts flesh on a rumor, doesn't it? The rumors were there, sort of going, maybe they'll join, and then this comes out. It's like, there's got to be more to it, then, isn't it?
Similar to the way I say, just like I say, someone sends me a DM on Instagram trying to sell me something, and I don't like. I'm not gonna buy it, but I'm a bit like, who's this? And they say, I'm definitely not a scammer, by the way. And I was like, and then all of a sudden it's just like, well, now you're a scammer. Now I know you're a scammer because you felt the need to say it. If you feel the need to say that, no, we're going to if you feel the need to legislate it, now I've got it in my mind, and I don't think it's going to take a lot to take out of my mind that UNC are very serious about potentially, or are seriously looking at the opportunity of getting out into and going into the Big Ten of the SEC. It's the logical explanation for me. And Nick, I'm going to throw this one to you really quick again before we go. So the bowl game and playoff schedule. Do you think that college football playoffs going up against the NFL, is that a good thing or a bad thing, or does it really make no difference?
From our point of view over here, I think it doesn't really make a difference, because if you are listening to us now and you've got an interest in college football, then fine, fair enough, you're going to watch college football. If you're listening to us because you just like football and you like the NFL and you want to listen to more football, maybe the NFL takes your priority, and so you might watch, I don't know. Not every college football game is available over here on TV, so that affects it. I don't think, from our point of view, it's a great big disaster. I understand that on the other side of the pond, there are people stuck in their ways that believe high school football should be Friday night, college football should be Saturday, NFL should be Sunday, and God forbid anybody who changes that. But again,
it's almost bigger
as
than,
I've said,
bigger than religion, isn't it?
Yeah, the football has moved on. COVID year, I think NFL played every day. They pretty much had a game at least every day. So I don't think really it's a problem. You'll watch what you want to watch. If your college is playing that you attended or whatever else, and your NFL team's not playing, you're going to watch your college, aren't you? If your team and your college is playing, then maybe you lose out. I don't know. But for those of us that are over here that don't go to the games, you just watch what's on TV and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, I like those weekends where college has kind of dipped off and the playoffs are starting and whatnot, and the bowl games are starting, and the NFL starts to move games onto a Saturday. As great as it is, I like my Sunday. I kind of like the overstimulation of having 4 screens on the go with 1 game there, 4 games there. My fantasy football and my bets and my accumulators coming through on the side. I like that overstimulation. So now those Saturdays where there's only 1 NFL game on, I can now have 2 games going on at the same time. And I will still find a way to watch both. But I'm in a privileged position again where I can watch 2 games at the same time because I've got 2 screens and all that sort of stuff.
And then we don't have to suffer for I suppose what we forget over here in the UK is the multiple services that the US have to sign up to get the amount and cover everything, because each one's on a different streaming service, so they have to pay for this. So I get it from that point of view. And as you're right, as you say, Nick, it's always almost been sacrosanct. Friday's high school, Saturday college, Sunday NFL. To have the Saturday starting to bleed, this year, as you say, although it only happened once the college football was over, that the NFL kind of went, we're going to grab hold of Saturdays, because people are still looking for Saturday football. This will be interesting when it's college and NFL on the same day. I reckon the college will outscore on a ratings the NFL games.
Well,
depending on what they are.
The NFL can have a Saturday game on their first 2 weeks this season because of it's to do with when Labor Day falls, isn't it?
Something to do with Labor Day weekend, and
it's to do with Labor Day weekend and what the actual date that it falls on. And if it falls after a certain date, then the NFL can not break the contract and have a Saturday game in week 1 and a Saturday game in week 2, and not violate the terms of the agreement to not steal college TV time. So for someone who I don't get to see on a Sunday night when the NFL's on, that primetime game in the US, which is 1:15 in the morning for us on Sunday night, Monday morning.
One of those joyful games.
I very rarely get to watch that game. I'll listen to it. I have it on the radio when I'm working, but I don't get to see that game very often. So the more games you're going to give me at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, or 1:15 on a Saturday night into Sunday morning, from the
Yeah.
NFL point of view, I'm going to enjoy that because I'm going to get to see more football. But I do understand everyone's desire to keep it as it is.
Yeah. So, it's that time, gentlemen. It has to be done. This is a thing that we do every week. Are you ready for your
We've got
trivia
all
question this
into
week?
it. I thought we'd managed to get past your brain teaser to get
No,
the brains working.
No.
I nearly reminded you. I thought, are we going to ask? Is there a trivia? But no. Well,
Gary was going to give you a dig when walking out of the classroom, and like, you're going to remind us of that homework.
Yeah, just because you've done your homework.
This week's will hopefully be a nice little easy one. It's not going to be too difficult this week. It's not too far out the boat. It's just simply, which state holds the most FBS schools?
You almost automatically want to say Texas because of the size, but then you go after the discussion about the Carolinas, how many schools there are dotted around it.
It is amazing when you realise. So I think the state with the most colleges is not. I don't think it's the same as the one with the most FBS. So I'm specifically looking at FBS schools. I'm not necessarily talking about college football teams altogether. Just simply in the FBS.
I think I'm just thinking of sheer size of states.
Mm-hmm.
It's got California. I'm thinking UCLA, USC, UNLV.
There's a lot in that Ohio area.
There's a lot in the Ohio area.
There's a lot in Florida.
There's a lot in Mississippi.
I'm gonna have to.
Man, I wonder if it's going to be one of those little ones up in a corner as well. Yeah.
No, I think
it won't be.
I think it's too obvious.
Do you really? Do you think it's too obvious?
Do you think Texas is too obvious?
I think it's got to be Texas because it's just the sheer size of Texas. The only other one I'd be tempted to think about would be someone like somewhere like California, who's got a big presence, or I think it's just based on the sheer size, it's got to be Texas, surely.
Okay, so are we going with Texas? Is that the answer that we're giving?
As Gary put it in my head, yes, I will share the answer and I'll say.
Well, do you know what?
As a 2, we'll go Texas.
You're correct. It is Texas with 12 FBS schools
in
the Baylor Bears, the Houston Cougars, the North Texas Mean Green, the Rice Owls, the SMU Mustangs, the Texas Longhorns, the Texas A&M Aggies. Then you've got the TCU Horned Frogs, the Texas State Bobcats, the Texas Tech Red Raiders, the UTEP Miners, and the UTSA Roadrunners. All FBS schools in Texas. Really quick. And I don't have to kind of go into depth of really going through it. Can you guess who's second?
No.
Which state? California?
Ohio.
Nope. It's Ohio.
It's Ohio. So again, it's just huge and empty, right? And then you just pop up some schools and that's about it, right? How many you got in Ohio?
Well, yeah. 8 FBS schools. You've got my favourite college team name, by the way, is the Akron Zips. The Bowling Green Falcons, the Cincinnati Bearcats, the Kent State Golden Flashes, the Miami of Ohio Redhawks, the Ohio Bobcats, the Ohio State Buckeyes, and the Toledo Rockets.
Toledo's in Ohio. Toledo.
And then there's a few in California, Florida, North Carolina, who've all got 7. Louisiana and Michigan both have 5, and then there are a few more with FBS teams that don't have that many. Obviously, most of those schools, like Wisconsin, I know Wisconsin has a ridiculous number of college teams, but barely any of them are in the FBS.
Yeah. That's the thing. That FBS was the kicker, wasn't it? They're all.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to make sure I added that in, because I thought it would be so obvious just to say Texas, but then I thought hopefully adding FBS would at least throw some of it in the air. But no, you're absolutely right with Texas. And with that in mind, we're going to move on to our main topic of the day. And that would be that one thing that I've kind of had raised to me over the last few weeks has been, what is the route that British players will take to get into the NFL? And actually, I thought that was equally as important for college. What's the route that British... If you are listening to this and you are like a 12-year-old who's really into football and wanting to get into a career, this is going to... Okay, we can't make that opportunity happen for you, but this is how most players tend to end up going.
Yeah, speak to your contacts in colleges.
Yeah. So, but over the years, there have been a large number of overseas. I think Germany. I did some research the other day, and Germany has a lot. Even right now, there are a lot of German kids in college football. But we've never been shy of having British-born, British-based players in college football. You look at... I mean, I was looking at, say, like your Christian Wades, your Lewis Rees-Zammits and whatnot, who didn't have to go through college and went through the international player pathway. But then you've got some of our favourites, some of the more favourites in like your Jamie Gillans, your Graham Ganoes, your Jay Ajayi's, Jermaine Elamanaur, etc., who've all gone through college football. F.A. Abada was not someone who went through college football.
Did he?
And again,
this is where we go. Where he got there, yeah.
Yeah, I want to say he came through on a special recommendation by Aidan Durd. When Aidan Durd was with the Dallas Cowboys on an internship, he'd said on the way out, like, look, there's a kid over in England who's been playing. I think you should take a look at him. The Dallas Cowboys brought over F.A. Obada, and now he's in the league. But I'm just going to look at, like mentioned here, Jay Ajayi, British-born. One of my favourite pictures of all time in the NFL is him winning the Super Bowl with the Eagles, with the Union flag, holding it and running around, which I just think, for me, if I was going to look at inspiring young players...
If you're going to look at promoting the NFL and the game of football in UK, that's it, right? That's your picture. Yeah. That's your, before anything else, before the Super Bowl, before you just get that guy. You get the Union flag, somebody who's won the lot. How are you not banging the drum and sharing that everywhere?
So we all know that he played for the Eagles and the Dolphins, but do you know which college he went to?
Boise State.
It was Boise State. Throughout his career, he had 678 rushing attempts for 1,823 yards and 28 touchdowns. And then he had... Well, that's a typo, clearly. I think 57... I've accidentally put 5,730 receptions. He did not get 5,730 receptions.
How long did he play college for?
Well, there's that, and then he only, with such an impressive amount of receptions, he only managed 771 yards throughout his career and 5 touchdowns. That's embarrassing for 5,730 receptions. So it's not exactly like a bad college career.
What I did have for you, Fletch, is you are always dishing out a question. I have a question for you.
Right.
Who is the other British-born player to win a Super Bowl? Jay Ajayi is one of only 2. Who is the other?
You're either talking someone who was years and years ago, or are they more recent?
I'm talking about someone who's very prominent on this side of the pond.
Menelik Watson.
He has two.
Not Menelik
He
Watson.
often calls himself 2 times. No, it's not Menelik Watson.
Yeah. Jason.
OC
Onamyara.
OC.
I forget.
Forget that he won it with the Giants.
I mean, his first one shouldn't count because it was a shocking play to come off a helmet like that. It's disgusting. It should have been banned. I haven't recovered from that yet. But
while you've got me and Gary in the same room, can we not talk about plays that come off helmets? Because I still hurt from that one. While Gary,
It was a beautiful throw, perfectly timed.
Which weirdly enough, I was literally talking about that play yesterday and how just like you can't. Anyway, that's not.
You can't legislate.
So going back to what you said about if you're a 12-year-old and you want to play football, you've got two routes into the game on this side. You can start playing flag football, which is fairly prominent and will be an Olympic sport.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can start playing for many of the local teams that have popped up.
Check your BAFRA website.
Up here we've got the Manchester Titans up here.
Yes.
So
you're back-to-back national champions, Manchester Titans, might I add.
Correct. Back-to-back.
Right. Give them their official title.
From there, you have the chance, if you're good enough and invited and your grades are good enough, to go to the NFL UK Academy.
Yes.
And if anybody graduates from there, then they can be selected by a college or Canadian college, and that is your route towards the NFL through your education. In my research yesterday and today, 3 NFL grads this year got selected. Peter Clark, a tight end, he's going to Temple University.
Mm-hmm.
Freddie Pelling, he is a crossover from rugby. He's still sort of finding his feet and doesn't really have a set position yet. He's gone to the University of Hawaii. And Kofi Taylor Borix has gone to join Sanders at the University of Colorado. They are the 3 NFL UK graduates that got picked up by colleges this year.
That is impressive.
So that is one way that you can get into the sport. Yeah.
Well, the other way that is usually the most popular, and I feel like this is a bit of a cop-out, but if you listen to, I don't know, Jamie Gillan, I watched an interview with Jamie Gillan the other day, the Scottish Hammer. You don't know that he's Scottish when you listen to him talk. You listen to a few of those players, you don't know that they're Scottish when they talk, or English when they talk, or whatever. There's very few. Why is that? Because when they were anywhere up to the age of 14, their parents moved to the States and they picked up football there. That is generally the very most common way, because then it's picking it up at a relatively high level when you are a teenager, and at the end of the day, with all due respect to the game in the UK, unless you go into the NFL Academy, the coaching at the level of the game for 14-year-olds in the UK is just it's not there.
Yeah.
It's not high enough at a level that's why you find that I think you're better off probably even playing rugby and making your way up the rugby ladder, because at least you're getting better training and coaching for your body.
Yeah, you're getting better learning how to tackle
its way.
Yeah.
And then trying to doing like a Lewis Rees Summit or a Christian Wade, and then trying to make the transition. Then it is.
Yeah. I think you're right. It's great that there is a route, as Nick's just highlighted. Play over here, play amateur, get involved, get to the NFL Academy if you have the talent that rises up and you an aptitude for the game, but it's almost like you have to have an aptitude for it. You can't, over here, you wouldn't have raw talent coached up to it. You would almost stand out that you're fast and you've got good hands just innately. And then you go to the NFL Academy where you get some proper, but it's so few and far between. And as you say, if your parents, when you're 11 and 12, up sticks for work or up sticks for whatever reason, family, whatever, go over and suddenly you're thrust into the world of football all around you, and every kid's playing it, and you're playing it all the time, and you go pick up games, and there's high schools playing it, states are playing it, whatever else, and you just play it all the time. It's inevitable that that's going to be the more common route into the NFL and into colleges. And as you say, when these guys get interviewed as a Scottish-born or an English-born player, you would never know it. It's almost like the NFL PR machine kicks in and kind of finds out that, hey, you're just a kid who's come out of Washington and you've been playing football at all the high schools in Washington. You went to Washington State. Oh, but your grandma was from England, or you were born in Scotland. Oh, this is a newsworthy kind of additional bit. It's almost like an afterthought. It's not, a guarantee to get you on there. And I think that's a lot of the time, as you say, Fletcher, that's the norm, how these guys get into the NFL. Then you find out about it only afterwards.
I think, in my opinion, that's going to change over the next few years, and as it continues to do. And I think one of the things I beat the drum about quite a lot is grassroots youth involvement in the game becoming more widely accepted in this country. Because I think you look at, if you have a kid who's talented in say, the fast, the slender, they've got a good center of gravity, they're agile and all that sort of stuff. What are they going to be doing when they do sports? They're going to be put into football, they're going to be put into rugby, they're going to be put into a sport that's far more prominent here. And I think, if you have the opportunity at the age of 13, 14 for American football to be a real sport that you can play, that you don't have to go and find or already be ready for, that's where I think you'll find, some of our more naturally gifted athletes from that age would see that as an opportunity and want to go there. But until then, look, at the end of the day, the likelihood of going from that point, if you don't know what the NFL is, or see that as a genuine thing at the age of 14, you're going to want to have a bit better chance of playing football.
Yeah, and
maybe
it's cheaper to go and get a pair of boots and a football than it is to go and get kitted out for a football out. It does not come cheap. From when I remember when I was playing, if you 14 and 15, because 14, as you say, Nick, I was playing pee-wee football, and so that's it was non-contact touch football, not flag, but two-touch football type thing. And you're okay, you can kind of get away with just wearing t-shirts and whatever else, but you inevitably you end up getting the trousers, and you get the pants and the leg pads and stuff, because you want to feel part of it. And they're not cheap already. And then as soon as you start to graduate, if you like, into full contact, you can't do that half-heartedly. You can't kind of go, oh, I'll start playing full contact, but I won't have all of the kit, because it hurts. It hurts a lot if you're wearing sort of somebody else's pads that don't quite fit you, and whatever else. It's not an easy entry level sport, and that's the thing with over in the US, high schools have just got mountains of kit that have been knocking around, and you don't have to go and get it, and it's much cheaper to get hold of. Whereas over here, imports and all that sort of stuff, so for you to set up a team and to set yourself up, if you were running a team, a local team, that's even teams over here. And I remember playing the Olympians. The Olympians weren't providing you with kit; they provided you with a uniform. They provided you with a jersey. But the expectation was the players are going out and buying their pads, their helmets, everything else, all of the bits that they needed. Each individual amateur player who's only playing it for the fun, only doing it, because they enjoy the sport, are going out and spending £300, £400, £500 on bits of kit. It's not cheap. It's not easy. So that's a thing that has to be removed, broken down somehow. I don't know.
I was somebody who got into ice hockey young. So I was I was playing that, and of course, you're growing so quickly. You need a new pair of skates every 18 months.
Yep.
You grow out of your junior leg pads, and you then need senior leg pads. You need, so I probably spent thousands of pounds on ice hockey gear over a 15-year. Well, yeah. Over like a 15-year amateur career. And my brother played in goal, so he needed twice
even
as
more
much
stuff.
kit. He needed twice, but he's got call ups to Great Britain to show for that. So good for him.
Well, one of the things I've spoken about this on the Sleep at Work podcast a couple of times, and it's one thing that I think is the only real US-based sport, or one of the top US sports that's genuinely popular around the world for playing, is basketball. Because as you're talking there about hockey, and as we spoke about football, the entry level just to play is expensive. And even if you don't want to do ice hockey, even just learning how to skate gets expensive after a while if you want to do it properly. Whereas basketball is very similar to our kind of football. I say this all the time. You don't even need a ball to practice playing football. You can walk down the street, find a can, and this is something I used to do all the time, and I was dribbling up and down the streets, walking home from school or whatever, with a can. I found a vent. That was a goal. It's that easy to play and practice and get used to control and whatnot. Basketball, all you need is a ball. We were playing basketball.
Need a court. And there are a lot of
with my
courts now
football.
that have been, there are a lot of courts that have been provided, community courts for basketball. A lot more.
Every five-a-side pitch that I see, like not a five-a-side pitch, but every, those like the little concrete ones in a park where there's two nets and it's maybe about the size of a five-a-side pitch, has a basketball hoop above it.
Yeah,
almost every single one, and there's always
the multi-use multi-use playground sports area. They're kind of marked out. They're all marked out for 3-point free throws
and if you've got a ball that has some form of air in it so it can at least bounce, you can practice dribbling, you can practice moving, you can get the steps right, and you can be on your own. You don't need another person. You're practicing playing football, okay, you don't need all the pads and everything to go outside and throw a football, but you either throw it or you catch it. It's either that or you're doing one of them like one of the Lamar Jacksons this year where you're throwing a ball and then you're running and you're going to catch it yourself and then you got to throw it. Which is, it's got to look a little bit weird, I'm not going to lie, if you're doing that in the park on your own for an hour. So you need, even at the worst case scenario, or the best case scenario, you need at least another person to practice something or do something. So yeah, I think just getting in on that early grassroots involvement is quite difficult, and you don't need that for, say, basketball or football, which is why they are so much easier to get into at a grassroots base level.
Yeah. So I think that the NFL, and fair play to them, they've seen the growth of flag football and growth of flag football as that entry level. They see it, as you said, Nick, it's going towards the Olympics. It's going to be an Olympic sport. I know the Jets and the Bears have thrown quite a lot of money and support behind sort of UK schools to kind of get a school's flag football. And that's where they have to do it. They have to do it through the schools, because then it's organised.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then it's not, as you say, Fletch, one kid says, I really want to go throw a football around, and then has to scrabble around and try and find somebody to go and play out in like playing catch in the park, if you like. At least at school it's organised. At least you've got more people available to play with you, and you have the chance then to see if you enjoy it. I mean, I remember some PE lessons at school, you were forced to go out and play rounders even if you hated the damn thing.
Yeah.
But, you ended. So you will have kids who'll be like, I hate this, I can't be bothered, why am I doing it? But you will get some kids who love it and find it, and that's their entry level. But it has to be done at the school, because they have the capability of having flags and stuff and all the stuff that you need.
Yeah. And they have a field as well, usually. Or
somewhere to play.
But I think, somewhat, I can't remember who it was exactly, and I'm very, very sorry if this person's listening to this and I can't name you off the top of my head, because and I've heard this mentioned a few times in a few different ways, but one of the things with rugby, it might be Claire de Bear, one of the things with football is if you watch the NFL or watch highlights of the NFL, even nowadays, while everyone wants to tell us how soft it is, you watch some of those tackles, how hard they are, how brutal some of those tackles actually are. Now, I want you to walk around and tell the mum of a 12-year-old, oh, do you want to go let him play that? No. At least we understand to a level with rugby at that age, the safety measures that are in place to make sure that 12-year-olds can play it safely and properly. And this is one of the things, though, with flag football, as to why it would be great, because one, you don't need all of those expensive pads. Oh, tag rugby, you already have the tags. But also, boys and girls can play it together, as we've seen around the world, and you don't have the major hits. So it's a lot easier for the mum of a 12-year-old or the dad of a 12-year-old to say, do you know what, actually, I'd be willing to let them have a go. But also, the other thing I was going to kind of say on it as well is, the thing is with American football is, like I say, it's still not a priority sport. It's not on the forefront of everyone's mind. So what you need is, and this is why it's great for schools, is for kids to want to try it, it needs to be there as something they can say, go on then. If you, at school, the amount of sports I played because I just went, why not? I'll give it a go. It's there. I did just about every sport there was as an after-school club because it was there. Why not? If you are asking a kid to go out and find American football for themselves, it's possibly not going to happen. Whereas if you put it there as an option, I guarantee you a good chunk of them at least go, why not?
Give it a go.
Try
Got
it.
Nothing else. It's raining or whatever reason. Same as I was the same at school. The gym was open. Go in and pick up a rugby ball, basketball, whatever was there because it's there. So kids will pick it up, and if they've done a couple of lessons at it, they'll try and practice and play and whatever else.
Exactly. Yeah. And then maybe there's an after-school club once you've tried it a couple of times in PE. It's not serious. You're just messing about. You're whacking. One of the PE teacher whacks a few cones out, and then finally learns what a running back is, and you go from there. But like I say, I think it's not okay. I'm not saying force children into it over here, but I'm saying, like, if this was more of an option and a realistic option and something that was actually not in the faces of children, but something that was at least within the eye shot of young people, then it would. Just watch how quickly that then grows. And do you know what? I took my little brother not long ago to watch the Titans, the back-to-back national champion Manchester Titans. And it makes me and my brother want to watch the NFL more. And watch more of the NFL, and having things like that will just simply bring more NFL fans into the game.
Yeah. And I think
I doubt there's going to be too many kids who turn around and say, oh yeah, that's great, I want to watch the Bristol Aztecs, but forget the NFL, I'm just a Bristol Aztecs fan.
Yeah, it's not going to. Yeah, the issue, and bagging the drum, I'm all for it, of saying go and watch your local team, but go and watch your local team caveated with, be aware that this is a bunch of guys who are amateurs who are doing this out of the love of the game. The level that you're going to go and watch does not compare to the razzmatazz and the shininess on a Sunday evening that you watch from the NFL. It's leagues and leagues apart. It's different hemispheres. Completely different. But they're guys like us. Most of them will be. Well, actually, I'm saying that now. When I remember that when I was playing for the Olympians, there were still guys at my age still, because they love the game, wanted to be out there playing it. There will be young guys out there who watch NFL just like you do, but want to try it out. So the level is not going to be great. There is some good coaching out there, and there are coaches out there who have visited the US and have got some coaching badges and all that sort of stuff. And fair play to them. But it's few and far between, and most of it's done as a passion. And much like you look at Sunday League football teams, you're in that level. Yeah. You're in that level of what you're going to go and watch. So don't be expecting
couple of years ago, around COVID time, I was like, I want to do something different. I did my ACL in 5 years ago, and towards the end of my rehab, COVID kicked in. So what I was going to do as a lot more involved sports to get my knee back up to full strength just kind of went away. So I really struggled for a little while after those first few months of COVID, because what should have been a few months of getting my knee up to full strength was a couple of months that actually just set my knee back. So when I came out of COVID, one thing I really wanted to do was try a new sport, and or try some more sport. So I actually gave flag football a go. I was like, I'm not comfortable enough with my knee to go into proper our football and go into contact, because I know how I play. I know how I am. I'll get kicked, or I'll kick someone.
With playing full contact football, you can't. And Nick, if you say you played ice hockey, you can't half pass it in the nicest possible way. If you're going to do it, you have to commit, and it's full on, and it's not. You can't, because you'll hurt yourself worse if you don't. So it's one of those.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about our football, and I'm very, very sillily. I believe it or not, I'm stupidly competitive, and it's one of those where either I hit someone or someone hits me, or I get into a fight where both of us are hitting each other. Either way, whenever I play, someone gets hit. But the kind of, I thought I knew that I was going to struggle no matter what with my knee with that. So like I say, gave flag football a go, and just on that kind of note though, like we were running through plays because they had a tournament at the weekend, and a guy was just going, he was on his phone, and he was getting up plays from a website and just kind of going, do you want to try this? Do you want to try that? And they had a tournament at the weekend, the weekend after, and it's for me. I guess I'm looking at that and saying, like, a lot of these people were learning on the fly here. They did a tournament 3 weeks before, and they're just pulling up whatever plays they can find off whatever website that they can get stuff off.
Yeah.
Because, like you say, this is a passion. This is a labour of love. This is something that we just love. People just love doing. And a lot of it is learning as you go and just kind of taking what you can as and when you can.
Yeah. And a lot of those, I went and played a couple of weeks flag team down here as well. And what I found difficult is I was remembering playing full contact football. And when playing full contact football, going back to flag, it's been a long time, but your mentality, you're on a football field, the mentality, it doesn't leave you, as you say, Fletch. You go out and play football, you're going to go out and you're playing it to that level. And I actually managed to, I managed to get hurt quite a bit because I was approaching the receiver the same way I would have approached the receiver when I was playing full contact.
Yeah.
So I inevitably ended up being much too close, smashing thumbs, trying to grab hips, and you're supposed to just pinch the flag, and I learned, there's a way of scooping and tackling. But the first 2 weeks I was charging in, getting ready to literally lay the person out, and having to jam the brakes on, and jammed my thumbs up completely terribly, and it's just had to kind of rethink it. So but the growth is there, and there are those teams out there learning on the fly, loving it on a weekend.
I mean, it's like playing American football at university. When everyone's again, it's another thing where you're there playing because you want to play. You're not there because for any other reason. But the amount of times, and I was only playing like once a week. The amount of times I'd come home and I'd be black and blue from, bangs and, I'm just gonna sit here and hold my leg because putting pressure on it is better than just not.
Yeah.
But not as long as I once was. That was
the prime of your life, right? You're at uni, you're like 18, 19, 20, flush of youth, and even then you're like, most of your Sundays spent in the bath going, this hurts, that hurts, everything hurts.
Playing hockey was completely different because you were so padded up. You just did not care because you didn't care if you got hurt because you knew that the other guy was going to get hurt as well. And the amount of times you bashed into a board and you miss the guy by just inches and you end up hitting yourself on the board and you're like, damn, I'm going to get you next time. Or you slide in here or slide in there. And, I think once my leg, I took a puck right to the back of my leg. And it caught just where the pad wasn't there, where the pad comes round.
Oh.
Yeah, and so my calf was black for a good 3 weeks, just from this one. Didn't feel it for hours afterwards because all the adrenaline's rolling round. But then you're limping for a week and your leg's black for 2 weeks, and. So,
and that's the thing, is because you're doing it on your Sunday and you're doing it out of passion, but real life comes in Monday to Friday, and whereas in the States, it's not quite the same. If you're a young kid and whatever else, and you're playing, it's organised, whatever else. Everyone's going to, but here, I remember when I was playing, you go on Sunday, and as I say, you get back from practice, you get back from the game, and all you want to do is lie in the bar, and then you've still got to wake yourself up at 7 a.m. to get to. As it was back then, you had to go to work and whatever else. And how do you go to work and you've got you barely hold anything because your hands are so crumpled after smashing into somebody's, face mask or whatever else.
Yeah.
And then explain that to people going, what were you doing at the weekend? I did this. And they're looking at you going, you did what? What? You played football and you smashed your hand up. What? What are you talking about? It was like, because it was so niche. Now it's probably less. It's more mainstream now, but it's still niche and it's still odd, but it's probably a little bit more understood.
Yeah. So I don't get me wrong. I think we could have this and probably talk till 4 a.m. on this topic alone, and I am absolutely loving this conversation.
It's making me think I really need to look up. I keep looking at the Berkshire Renegades. I should go put my pads on again. No, stop it. Don't.
So if I move it back to topic,
yes.
Would everyone want like a list of all the British-born players that attended college and joined the NFL through college?
Go for it.
Go for it, yes.
Right.
See if we know. Go on. How many we're going to get?
We have Vince Abbott, born in London. He attended Washington and California State. He was undrafted in 1981. J.E., born in London, Boise State, graduated in 2015, Super Bowl winner in 2017. Emmanuel Ake, London, went to Winston-Salem College, graduated in 2005. These are all players that either didn't get drafted and got walk-ons as undrafted free agents, or they made it to the practice squad and didn't go any further, or have actually made it and played the game. Jack Crawford,
so
born in London,
as
Penn
long as
State.
in one way, shape, or form they've made it to an NFL roster, even if it's just practice squad. Right, okay, sorry, just wanted to clarify.
And they're all British born. They're all British born.
Right.
Jermaine Emunye, London, Texas A&M in 2017. He's currently with the Giants. Owen Gill was born in London. He attended Iowa State. He was drafted in 1985. Rhys Lloyd was born in Wales. He attended Rochester Community College. He graduated in 2005. Josh Morrow attended Stanford. He was born in Oxford. He graduated in 2014. Obi Melifonwu was graduated from the University of Connecticut in 2017. Sammy Morris was born in Oxford. He went to Texas Tech, graduated in 2000. The two men on the list that get special notification because they are Mancunians, Michael Okoro went to Stanford, graduated in 2007. Menick Watson, Florida State, graduated in 2013. And Vincente Shikomonako went to Morgan State. He was born in Birmingham. He graduated in 2003. And finally, as we've mentioned today, Osi Omenora graduated in 2003 from Troy. He was born in London to Nigerian parents, and he is a two-time Super Bowl winner in 07 and 011. They are your British-born, college-attending players that made it to the NFL.
So officially, you also actually have Julian Aquara, who was born in London, but he was actually from Nigeria, and they moved back when he was like a week old. But he was officially born in London. But Menelik Watson is one of the big reasons that I got into the NFL. Like, I'm interested in the NFL to another level, because I don't know if you remember, Nick, but Menelik Watson is a bloke. He is a Manchester City fan, and one of the amazing things was at the time, like when Manchester City started doing City Square just before games, he did a lot of games where he did a lot of halftime stuff, and then he did, when the Super Bowl was on, he did a lot of social media stuff for Manchester City as well around the Super Bowl. So they flew him out. Or I think he was probably already there, but they flew him to wherever the Super Bowl was, and would have him doing like exclusive Manchester City Super Bowl content, which I just thought was, and it was. But he's a kid from Longsight, and it was something like he was playing basketball and then broke his leg, and through that found football. And it was a proper little bit of all my days. I grew up 10 minutes from Longsight. How amazing. And I'm a City fan too. So if kids from like 10 minutes away from me support Manchester, I mean, I weren't quite as much of a kid as he was when he first got into the NFL. But it was like, oh wow! But in all fairness, it's like it's a wow. That's a kid who grew up 10 minutes from using the NFL. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
No way. And it's similar to John Amici. John Amici grew up in Manchester, and then played in the NBA. And growing up, watching Manchester Magic at the John Amici Centre was a great thing for me to be able to say, okay, I've got an interest in basketball because there's representation there at that level. I just think it's amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so on that, I think to kind of wrap it up, I guess, is we've actually done okay for time this week. We've still gone over a little bit, but not as much as we usually do. But in terms of just kind of British players, there have been a lot of fantastic British players who've made it through college, and I wish I could come up with a list right now of exactly which British players are in, but I'm not searching through all three divisions of college football and trying to find out through the thousands of teams to see if there's one or two. I do want to give a special shout out though to Rich Wursel, who is the offensive coordinator for the University of Wisconsin Oshkosh, which is fun to say, in Division 3, who is from the he started out as a head coach at the University of Aberystwyth in the 90s, I think late 90s, early 2000s, and made his way all the way to college football, and was the first ever overseas coordinator or fully fledged coach in FBS Division 1 FBS history. And he's, like I said, the offensive coordinator now. I think he got Penn State and is now an offensive coordinator in Division 3, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So it's not just players who get those opportunities. If you genuinely want to push for something, there are lots of colleges out there, and just look at the opportunities.
Aidan Durd. He's DC at Seattle. He was at. We mentioned he was at Dallas. He's a London-born guy. And
yes.
Tom Watt. He's
an Emma.
Tom Watt's a linebackers coach at Texas A&M, I think. He was London-born, so he went to Oklahoma. So there are coaches in the game as well that have made it.
Yeah. So most people you will find who are UK-born actually just simply move to the States in teenage years or in childhood years, and then played football in college and whatnot. They didn't have a particular. They are probably pushed by the NFL UK Facebook page or Twitter page, and considered proper British NFL players by circumstance of birth. But the fact is, they spent most of their formative years and early years and got into it just like any other player who goes through college into the NFL by playing football throughout the childhood. But there are opportunities, like has been said, through the NFL Academy, through British, the Britball League, the BAFA leagues, and those opportunities do exist. And there are players who have found the opportunity to get into the NFL through there. But I do think it's always interesting to, like I say, to see that the opportunities to get into college, to then go on to play in the NFL, are there for British players. Should you, I guess, have that drive and determination to push for it?
Should it be the dream? Should it be there? And I suppose what we shouldn't forget, we talk about this and we talked about it before. College football, it's college first and foremost. So should you be lucky, should you get through the NFL Academy and be, selected, and a college comes in and offers you a place. Now, I don't know, Nick, maybe from some of the bit of research, when they're given, are they given full scholarships or are they given partial scholarships or whatever else? Because what you got to go for. If you get picked up by a college and they say, "Come play football for us, we'll give you 3 years full scholarship," you're getting a full-time education whilst playing football. So it's not just a football opportunity that you're being given there at all.
I think there's a college rule to say that you can't give more than so many full scholarships across your
program, across the
athletic
department. Program.
But that's across the whole program. So if you've got, say, 100 scholarships, that's to cover basketball, athletics, golf, football, soccer, all sorts. And the amount of British-born football, soccer football, the amount of British-born soccer players that are getting scholarships over in the US and then coming back and playing, is so they've only got a fine amount of scholarships available, and they have to spread it across their whole. I don't know what the number is, so I certainly can't say, but they can't go handing scholarships out willy-nilly. You have to earn them.
No. Well, there was a girl I knew a few years ago who managed to get a soccer scholarship in the US. She ended up going on to play for City and then Everton and United, and now she's in Italy. But so I know a girl that's little. To be fair, I think that's just me trying to go, oh, look at me, I know someone. But I do know someone who managed to get one of those scholarships a few years ago in America for female soccer.
I'm not crowing about it.
Yeah, well, I am. So.
So no.
Yeah.
Sure.
Anyway, so go on, Nick.
No, go on, carry on. I was going to say, you're leading this pod. You can crow if you want to.
There's a song in there somewhere.
Yeah,
it's my pod, anyway, and I'll crow if I want to. Anyway, moving on.
As just to wrap up, like I say, we ended up speaking a lot about kind of the grassroots and bringing it forward in the UK and all sorts of stuff like that, which is great and is so important and really does make a difference to what the end goal of the episode is, which is to say that these opportunities are there, but this is where the opportunities are. This is what the opportunities, and where we feel the opportunities could be more, I guess, and as well as some of our own memories of the own opportunities that we had. So with that in mind, I think it's a good place to call it a day and go and spend out the rest of our Fridays. And it's just clocked onto me now that by the time this episode's released, have a lovely Father's Day to all you fathers out there listening.
Okay.
And yeah, been a pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you.
It's been good chatting with you boys. I appreciate it. I know you kind of kept roughly to the topics, but as you say, it's great that we've got such a breadth of interest that not only are we looking at what's happening across the on and the NCAA and all the news and whatever else. But at heart, we are still three fans from the UK, and we're looking at ways that the game could grow and things that we do, and any experience and whatever else. There are people out there listening and trying to understand how we got into it and the passion that we have. Just listen to that 30-minute ramble where we went on about grassroots football. It tells you all you need to know about what it's like in the UK for fans of the game. We just want it to be there for everyone. We want other people to find it, other people to realise what it can bring to you. And also so that we don't feel weird at staying up at 1 a.m. on a Monday night, Sunday night, Monday morning. We know that there are others out there doing the same.
Yeah, that's always been the one where I'll go into work. I used to go into work the next day and everyone used to just assume I was hungover because I looked so tired and disheveled. but no, I was watching the Bengals versus
Bengals
the Titans,
versus
actually.
the Titans.
So,
I was watching the Buccaneers versus the Vikings.
Oh, do you watch
really?
Yeah, I was watching the Bengals Titans. Oh, which one do you support? Neither. I was just watching the Bengals versus the Titans. It was a good game. So what?
It was a primetime game, but who? Where? Yeah.
Exactly. Like, I was going to watch it. I'm going to watch it. I just love this sport so much that I'm going to watch the Bengals Titans at 3 a.m. Even if it's 12-12 going into the fourth quarter, I'm okay with that. But yes, I have had a lovely evening with you gentlemen and have a lovely weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Indeed. Happy Father's Day all. Cheers, man. Have a great
something
weekend.
Special lined up next week, I believe.
We do. In fact, well, actually, I'll say this before we go, is we've got a couple of special things lined up coming up. So if you're sick of me, mostly, because I'm the only one who you've seen every week, but if you can't get sick of Gary, no one can get sick of Gary or Nick, we will have some new, hopefully some different things going on to keep and pique your interests.
Stay tuned.
Come back for more.